Welcome to our podcast for St. Bavo's Religious Ed program. I'm here with Paul Barrett, and as always, the rule is he can ask me any question he wants about faith or religion, and I don't know what I'm not pre-prepared for the questions. So, Paul, what have you been thinking about since our last podcast?
Okay, so relating to the last podcast, how do you go to apologize to someone and ask Jesus about that?
How do you go and apologize to someone when you were the wrongdoer? Okay. This is a kind of question that it depends on the circumstance, okay? Because sometimes to try to apologize to someone could make the situation more difficult. But in other situations, you absolutely need to go and apologize to someone for what you did that was wrong to them. And trying to decide when to do which is probably the best. That's a good thing to talk to a priest about in the sacrament of reconciliation. Is this one of these situations where I need to actually directly apologize to the person or not? Or is there another thing I can do to express my apology just to God? Or you could talk to an elderly spiritual person, a person who has more experience in the Christian life, who may not be a priest, about that. Because that's a relational question. That's about how do you heal a relationship in the best possible way. But if you directly did something to someone and you're in an important relationship with them, then and they understand what the words "please forgive me" mean, then by all means you go and ask them for forgiveness. But in some situations, it becomes more like you got to just let the relationship heal on its own, and then you talk about it a year or two later. And again, each of those situations is different, and as you said in your question, the most important thing you can do is take it up with Jesus. Just go to Christ in your personal time of prayer and ask Him. And then also count on the fact that He will speak to you through other wiser people who know Him, okay? Like the priest you're going to confession to, or some other wise person in your life. And then they can help you with that too. Does that explain it? Maybe you need more clarification than that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Good. Now, okay. Any other? I feel like there's another question here. You got one?
Well, let's see. So let's say that. So I know someone might ask that, like, so say you're angry at the person and they're apologizing. What is the best thing? This is sort of similar to last episode, but how do you relate there?
Okay, the person comes up to you and they're trying to apologize to you, and you're still angrier than a hornet. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I would say is you could do one of two things if you're the angry person. Okay. If you're let's take both people and start with the angry person. You could say, could we talk about this later when I'm a little bit more calmed down? I really do want want to work this out with you, but I can't right now. I gotta go. I gotta step into my own quiet place and calm down. Okay, that would be one strategy. The other strategy would be to quell the anger as best you know how, and just go on and let the person apologize and forgive them. We used to joke about this. I had a dear friend. He used to look at me and say, "I forgive you, brother." You know, that kind of thing. And, but I was always sure of his forgiveness. Even if he forgave me like that, I knew he would forgive. Mm-hmm. Okay? So, yeah, there could be situations where you allow both the forgiveness and the anger to come out at the same time. As long as, there is a very funny story. I was teaching RCIA my first year at St. Bavo's, and I was talking about the fact that sometimes people who hold unforgiveness keep the person inside their heart in a jail cell, and then they take them out. This is just between them and their conscience, but in their mind they take them out every once in a while and beat them up and throw them back into the jail cell. And I said, what we really have to do is let go and let that person out of that jail cell that you put in your heart. And one of the candidates for RCIA raised his hand and he says, "Gus, would it be okay if while we were getting them out of the jail cell, we gave them one final kick as we got them out of our heart?" And I said, everybody laughed, and I said, "No, I don't think you quite understood what I was trying to say about forgiveness." But the point is that what that person was saying is that yeah, we're dealing with the anger, and it can overwhelm us at times, even when it's only an interior struggle. But I always thought that image of not releasing a person and keeping them inside a jail cell in your heart is a good image. Mm-hmm. We really ought to release people from our heart and not hold on to their wrongdoing.
Yeah.
But it can be very, very, and I think the best solution to that is to focus on, like St. Paul talks about, all that is true and good and beautiful, and think of these things and don't think of the wrongdoing of your brothers or sisters or the people in your school or the strangers that have done bad things to you or whatever. You try to focus on the good that God has placed in the world, and you have to let go of the wrongdoing that people have done and learn from it. You've got to learn both from what they've done so that you don't do it to other people, and also so that you can learn about how sin hurts the common good. Okay, that's the other thing. It's the call to justice. In other words, forgive and remember, which is the principle I talked about last time from Archbishop Odama. Part of the reason you remember someone's wrongdoing is not so that you can point fingers at them, but that so you can learn the lessons of justice. Okay, and how a person's wrongdoing affects the good of the whole. Okay, the good of whatever group of people you're part of, be it a Christian community, be it a parish, be it a neighborhood. be it a city, be it a nation, be it a world. Okay? I mean, that's why we forgive and remember, because we want a better world. Okay?
What would you say the lessons of justice are?
The lessons of justice. Oh boy. You got me on this one. There's so many of them. Let me give a few that come immediately to mind. My grandfather was a judge. You know, he studied law at Marquette University, and he eventually got elected to the judgeship in Manitowoc County in Wisconsin. Manitowoc is a city, one of the cities on the lake. It's one of the lakeshore cities of Wisconsin. Yeah, just for your geographical interest, the first lakeshore city of Wisconsin is what? It's Kenosha. Okay, but if you go further up from Kenosha past Milwaukee, you get to eventually to Manitowoc, and that's the city he was from.
Okay.
And he heard many cases. What he did every morning before he went to the judge's chambers is he prayed in church in front of the Blessed Sacrament. He would pay a visit. And he would ask that justice would be done. And in about close to 20 years of hearing cases, he had only 2 cases appealed, and the higher court upheld his decision.
Wow.
So what's the story? He's the man who taught me to pray, by the way. Besides my parents, of course, my mom and dad taught me about prayer too, but he was very, very fervent to teach his grandson about prayer. And the lesson I learned from him, lessons of justice, is that in order to get to justice, you have to have wisdom. And in order to get wisdom, you have to go to God for wisdom. Okay?
Yeah.
You got to constantly pray for wisdom. So when I was young, I memorized a passage in Scripture. Solomon's prayer for wisdom. It's in the book of Wisdom, chapter 9. God of our ancestors, Lord of mercy, who by your word have made all things, and in your wisdom have fitted man to rule the creatures that come from you. Grant me wisdom, consort of your throne, and do not reject me from the number of your children. For I am a mortal man, I am uneducated in justice and the laws. But indeed, if any man be perfect in these matters, if he lacked wisdom that comes from you, he would still count for nothing. That's the passage from Wisdom that I memorized when I was in high school.
Wow.
And I have not forgotten it, because it's a constant prayer of my heart. I'm asking for wisdom all the time. So that's one of the things of justice. What was your...
You mentioned it earlier. It was like the lessons of justice.
The lessons of justice. The key lesson of justice. And it was underlined for me in another discussion I had with a wise man. This was an interesting wise man. This man ran the biggest paper mill in Appleton, in my hometown in Appleton, Wisconsin. He ran this paper mill, and it was called the Riverside Mill. And he ended up being the executor of the estate of Mr. Clark of the corporation known as Kimberly-Clark. And so this guy was one of the great paper executives of the area. And he and I used to take walks when he was in his 80s and I was in my 20s. and I was having a discussion with him about justice. And what he said was, if you want to know justice, you have to start with truth. It's like a courtroom. You begin with truth, and then justice can be meted out. So if you're looking for justice, pray for wisdom and look for truth. And of course, it starts, as you have said, with Jesus. Jesus is the power and wisdom of God, just like St. Paul said in in 1 Corinthians chapter 2. And Jesus is the truth. He said that in the Gospel of John. I am the truth, he said. So we come to the truth through Christ. And he desires to lead us to all truth. But the other part of discovering truth is using our own God-given intellect to appreciate the true, the good, and the beautiful in our education, and most importantly, in our relationships with others. You know, so like Bishop Rhodes, his motto, every bishop has a motto.
Yeah.
His is love and truth. And I like that, because love and truth go together. Mm-hmm. And as you grow in love, you will grow in truth. And that's my hope for everybody, and my wish for you and your family. And thank you for helping me. And Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you. Yeah.